Hello, everyone. We are fortunate to have Miguel Francis here with us today. Miguel Francis, thank you so much for coming. How are you doing today?
All good. How are you, Adia? Good meeting
Yes,
you. Thank you for having me.
yes, I'm good. Thank you so much. And can you please give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. 6 years in the industry of blockchain and now Web3, as it is called. I'm a marketing executive, a filmmaker, and essentially a CMO of our own company, which is the future. The future is now DAO, TFIN DAO. We are a go-to-market communications and boutique media company. We specialize in public relations, branding, and go-to-market strategies for our clients. So we essentially combine the three main pillars of go-to-market, which is public relations and Google SEO of your company. We combine filmmaking and unique trust-enabling docu-style visuals that essentially create trust and scale the positioning of our clients. And lastly, we do full-scale social media, digital traffic, etc. So we actually create call to actions and we drive audiences to a certain call to action for our clients. So that's really what it's all about. It sounds kind of simple, but when you put it all together, it's not. And our job is taking companies to market and helping them along the way with all sorts of things, from investor relations to government relations to obviously funding, partnerships, listings, etc. And that's why we enjoy sometimes working with Platinum over here, because you guys do great IR, and that's our little connection here. So,
all right. Before we go deeply into market strategies, can you tell us what exactly is Web3 and how does it differ from the previous iterations of the internet?
right. I mean, the most simple explanation that I think a lot of people heard by now is really that Web3 is a way to store data in a decentralized fashion, although it's quickly becoming not so decentralized as we originally hoped, because obviously the powers that be and the centralized powers are now fully entering Bitcoin. Back when I started, which was late 2017, it was the other way around. You know, Jamie Dimon was calling it the devil, and there was so much FUD on the mainstream media, whereas now it's almost like quiet in terms of the media front, but it's actually lots of on-the-ground work with the ETFs, all of the ETFs that are obviously in line for an approval, MasterCard, Chase, and so many, from Myers to DHL, supporting the concept of blockchain and the immutable transfer of data. But so the simple analogy, Web3 is where you store data in your own capacity, whereas Web2 is where you store your password and data on someone's server, let's say Gmail, right? And you have no control over what happens to that data, or whether your actual activity on the network is going to be hacked into, broken into, monitored, etc. With Web3, you own the data, you own your keys, you own your signature, and you also essentially own your login and password. It's not stored on anyone else's device. So all of a sudden, you get access directly to Web3 ecosystem of tools and products, and you're able to feel fairly safe, even though it's a new industry. And obviously that means that a lot of the roaches always crawl underneath the log into something that is so unique as crypto. Everything from opportunists, scammers, rug pullers to what we have now, drainers and other sort of essentially Web3 hackers that find ways to test the security of the Web3 layer and sometimes get away with things that we wouldn't expect to happen in the Web3 world. So it's not perfectly safe yet. It's still a very new industry, and there are still threats out there to be reckoned with and to take note. But for the most part, especially in terms of safekeeping your assets, as long as you don't play around with websites that sometimes pose to be Web3, connect your Web3 wallet like MetaMask and get drained. But if you just store your value, then I believe that Web3 is one of the safest places to store your value for the time being, especially with a lot of hard wallets, right? Which means obviously not storing it on an exchange, not storing it on, an internet network, storing it on a hard device that you have and that only you can access, because the passcode is literally in your head. And now you can travel with that with that value borderlessly without declaring it, because there's no law preventing you from traveling the borders with a flash drive. So long story short, that's my comparison of Web 2 and Web 3, also taking, I guess, in all of my, experience in the industry over the last 6 years.
Okay. And critics argue that Web 3 is still in its infancy and faces scalability and usability challenges. So how do you address these concerns when developing market strategies?
So our job is to create trust, essentially scale the brand positioning of our clients. So we want to make sure that if you go to Google and you search something, it comes up in the results, and it comes up in a positive way, because that is really what public relations at the end of the day is about. It's about forming a positive image for the company in play, while at the same time repackaging its products in such a way that anybody can understand and relate to the product, and then consecutively want it, right? And want to try it, right? Now, it's not just public relations that we use to create a plethora of media that solidifies trust, because when a person sees something on Twitter, he wants to Google it, right? And once the person Googles that, the person wants to see results that are, quite wholesome and hopefully a lot, and that's a trust factor. Now, we also want to create an image. Now, in that regard, we have this film called The Future Is Now film, and you can kind of see me there with, I think with Akon, Brock, and Iman. There's Tim Draper right below. So we're able to create our own in-house film that serves as a sort of a handshake for us and our clients, where we get to meet people through thought leaders to companies, and we put them in this film, and we put them alongside a lot of these thought leaders of the space. And so that also elevates the image of the company in play, because it's kind of reputation marketing, right? Where we create a persona for them among other thought leaders, evidently scaling their persona and their brand within a story, right? And so that's how we approach a lot of visual marketing together with PR, right? Strong, cinematic messages that really open the company and the founders up and truly reveal why they're doing what they're doing, showing a use case, how is it solving something, and then obviously creating a solution for others to view the product as, right? So that they want to use that solution for themselves, right? So that plus the PR, right? And then the third is we would create social media buzz. So to address any trust issues in the industry, you want to be able to have influence. And in order to have influence, you have to be well connected to influencers. Lucky for us, we've been able to accumulate vast KOLs to, again, thought leaders, YouTubers, journalists, etc., that have influence, right? So I think when a company wants to address the tasks of trust and mass adoption, and really, again, stripping down and repackaging their proposal, their product to a very simple form so that the masses can understand, right? Our tools allow us to address that issue, right? Because we cover kind of all fronts, right? The image, the public relation image, and then the social media image, along with traffic and influencers. And so I think that's really the ultimate trust factor that we have to resort to. We have to understand that in the Web 2 world, the media had the most control of the people's opinions up until recently. I think up until COVID. Like COVID Black Swan was probably one of the biggest awakening moments of modern humanity in our history. There has never been anything that looked so far-fetched while at the same time being used as a problem reaction solution to essentially encroach on people's rights and make them act a certain way than COVID. There was really nothing, at least more broad in the modern scale, with all the social media and all the communication tools that we have, along, of course, with our industry of decentralization. And that is essentially why, shortly after COVID and the black swan of COVID, we have this natural bull run according to the math of Bitcoin, but also according to the sort of humanity's psyche, right? People were so tired of the powers that be and what they could do. And a lot of people woke up during that time and started reading Bitcoin's white paper. I mean, literally, I was on Clubhouse. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I was on Clubhouse educating people on Bitcoin as it was slowly going, 20, 25, 35, and all the way up to, 65K in the previous bull run. And a lot of that came from people stuck at home and not knowing what else to do and looking for solutions. And so Web3 and decentralization and Bitcoin's white paper, sort of the Bible of Satoshi, was a solution for a lot of people. And we evidently saw the results of that influx of capital and interest as it took us to an all-time high. So I think it's natural that the media has a very important role in tackling the issues that you spoke about in your question. And so for us, the only solution is media presence, the right positioning, and then using the right channels of social influence to scale that message and attract community. Because, in Web3, you're not building businesses, you are building communities. Community is equal your success. So that's that.
Okay. And so considering the rapidly evolving technology landscape, so how do you assess the long-term viability and sustainability of Web3 market strategies?
We are on the crossroads, right? Right now on the precipice sort of between CBDCs and Web3. And we see how a lot of companies, from Binance to to all of these big guys, obviously learning from the tragedies of Celsius and Luna and, 3 Arrows and obviously FTX, although FTX, I think, was an inside job. But a lot of the industry out right now, looking at all of that debacle that happened over the last 2 years of our sort of downtrend, just before the recent uptrend, a couple months ago, are essentially folding. They're bowing down to the powers that be and to the centralized future that is being proposed by the mega trendsetters of the World Economic Forum and other entities like that, which is CBDCs. And again, COVID was a precipice to a lot of that. And a lot of educated people instantly connected COVID with the whole concept of passing, having a QR code, being able to go somewhere, not go somewhere, and how great a CBDC system with a similar red or green light, depending on your social score, would fit into all of that, right? It's like a technocrat's wet dream, a match made in heaven. And so a lot of us sounded the alert, especially in the Bitcoin maximalist community, back, almost 4 years ago. People said, this is coming, this is what's going to happen through this great reset, right? And so the question now is really, if people are making good decentralized products, so I apologize. If people are making great decentralized products, how are they going to be able to sustain the presence in the market that is quickly being taken over by these centralized players, right? Because, when a protocol like our friends, asterism protocol. The founder is an old friend of mine, actually one of my first clients back in like 2018. They created a cross-chain protocol that allows one blockchain to talk to the other. So for example, DHL, has a blockchain. Maersk, the biggest shipping company in the world, also has a blockchain. So when a product comes through a ship onto land and gets into a DHL blockchain, there's got to be a connection there, right? So a lot of the exit strategies for projects like that is to sell eventually to a large player like that. But in the end, what are you doing, right? You're helping centralized blockchains centralize themselves even more. And so a lot of the industry is in that because, people obviously, well, they have to be happy. They have to make money. They have to provide for their families. They want to set themselves up in the best position, considering the world and the events that are happening right now. And so that's why I think a lot of players from small to medium to large are forced to sort of bend the knee and do what's good, not for the industry of Web3, but more sort of for the industry of, I wouldn't even call it Gov3. I guess it would be more like the centralized technocracy, right? That essentially Satoshi and Bitcoin was created to oppose and balance. And this is where we get into the next stage of, the problem of our times in Web3, which is the discussion with the Bitcoin maximalists, because these guys and gals are completely against any of that, protocols, tokens, DeFi, all this, shite it stands against what the Bitcoin promise was intended to be. And that's why a lot of Bitcoin maxis don't like the industry of Web3 because, they feel that it's taking away from the promise of Bitcoin because of greed, groupthink, and greed. So the way to tackle that problem is to work, I think, and create products in the industry that have utility, use case, and that align with the concepts of bettering yourself, right? For example, a medtech company that's out there that's creating a digital ID for patients that are in risk groups of diabetes or that have diabetes, and it's a system that incentivizes them to take their insulin, to take their medications, to keep it on track and get rewarded in a native token of the company. And that company is supported by the UN Health Foundation. And so the question is that a company that's good, that's helping people, or is that a company that's helping the UN essentially create a digital ID medtech play? Yeah. And I don't have the answer to that question, because we do get involved with such players sometimes, and we try to create, an image for them that speaks to both sides of the argument, right? Because at the end of the day, who else do we have to play with? If you look at Bitcoin maxis, they sit in their own silos and, they're mainly interested in mining, and the businesses that they do around Bitcoin is either, mining, trading, conferences, and probably mining again. So it's a very limited scope of interaction that you can do with that Bitcoin. But, Bitcoin's premise was not to be a store of value. It was to be cash. And looks like they're not really, the Bitcoin maxis aren't really following through with that idea that Bitcoin was supposed to be cash. And again, because of Web3 and all these other cryptos, Bitcoin evidently in a greedy space, fairly greedy space. I mean, let's be honest, a lot of Web3 is driven by greed. It's a very unfortunate factor. We have to deal with it. People have to deal with it, but that's where the scammers come from. They come from greed, because they see a quick, opportunistic way to make money and then disappear. So driven by greed, Web3 made Bitcoin the store of value, because why would I want to pay with my Bitcoin? It's such a valuable thing, right? Let me pay with my little shitcoin instead, and so, that's really where we are. It's a very new industry. And it's going in terms of its development, it's like this, it's not a straight line. It's just constant ups and downs, and people and companies and communities learning and experiencing and making mistakes. Some do it again, some try not to do the mistakes again. It's not a simple industry to be in. Let's just put it that way. And that's why a lot of players in Web3, and in terms of positioning, are outreaching to more centralized, established entities, from finance to manufacturing to medicine, etc. Because who else are you going to play with? Right? That's, I think, the main challenge for any company out there, because at the end of the day, you want to create clients and create sales for the companies that you work with, if you are in the go-to-market business, in terms of Web3 or anywhere, right? You want to create sales for your clients. That's the goal. Sometimes you have to, work with companies that do not care for the Bitcoin promise, right? Or truly, the cores of Web3, because again, the situation has forced these companies to develop a certain way and play with certain traditional entities and players that are kind of not, steering towards decentralization per se. And so that's the biggest challenge in terms of companies and positioning, and to find that right face, and to find that messaging, and to find that strategy of how will you, kind of go through all of that so that you can actually launch successfully and exit successfully. It's becoming harder and harder for companies, really. And that's why we see so many companies still coming and going. But obviously over the years and over the bear market flushes, I'm sure everyone is with me on that. It serves as a great vehicle to get all of those fake outs kind of out of the way for the real breakouts. Right? Because bear markets bear the fruits and bull markets produce the bullshit. So with this, I think, fourth major kind of cycle that we're experiencing now, I think even more big players have been wiped out that were fake, because Celsius and its crazy DeFi credits and the way they operated, I mean, people asked back in 2018, how are they going to, what is this? Right? And so, so it catches up to people. Right? If you're in this to do something other than what Bitcoin intended for you to do, you will get, the dog is going to catch up to you and it's going to bite you in the butt. So I think working with a good market strategy company ensures that you pick the right development path for your company, not just in terms of image, but also internally, in terms of product, in terms of outreach, in terms of partnerships. Right? Because you don't want to work with the wrong people, and you don't want to work with the wrong people that make you do wrong things. And then you'll end up in a situation like FTX, where a dog didn't just bite you in the butt, but ripped a big part of it off. So I think that's another good point to look for. So both ends, for people working with go-to-market agencies and the challenges of go-to-market in Web3.
Okay, Miguel, can you discuss instances where companies failed to achieve their Web3 objectives, and what lessons can be learned from these failures? And if you have personal experience, please feel free to share.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know many people that I worked with back in the day who back when we were just doing only cinema, back in the day, we were only doing our short branding films, which was basically, trust enabling content, because a good documentary always makes the viewer fall in love and create a connection, emotional connection with the product, if it's presented in the right way, because that's how we started. We started only with visual branding back in 2018. And so we had a few companies who did the ICO path. And obviously the ICO path was not a great path, because we know what happened during the ICO craze. A lot of people failed miserably and lost everything. A lot of ICOs also had major investments for this and that and marketing, and they didn't go anywhere. And they didn't go anywhere because they didn't have the right tools or the right experience back in those days, especially when the hype of 2018 began and everybody was like, Bitcoin, I gotta go make some money in this. people didn't know what they were doing. They were just doing anything they can. That's why so many people fell for it, because the money was essentially, or the wealth in the market was essentially quadrupling thanks to essentially the crypto promise and the Bitcoin promise. And there were more funds being made. So people started creating all kinds of things, from virtual sort of early meta spaces where you could go into a car salon and experience the car virtually, instead of buying it, or experiencing it before you go inside and experience it physically, and all kinds of stuff like that, and a lot of it failed. And I know quite a few people behind these companies, because again, we work with them. And what they did is they took the experience, they took the lessons, they scaled. Some of them got it right the second time. Some of them didn't get it right the second time. And some of them got it right in 2022, 4 years down the line with their third or fourth project, they got it right. And they did something that has a good product, that has a good use case, that had good go-to-market strategy and marketing in general, and something that had a good community in return. And all of that equals a good project. And a lot of them have not become unicorns, let's say, but they were able to get a Lambo. So let's just put it at that. So that's my suggestion, right? Learn from your mistakes. If it doesn't work the first time, assess what you did wrong and try it again. That's the only way to succeed in general, and especially in this industry. So never give up from your goal.
All right, I have two last questions for you. So the next one, so how do you handle criticism that Web3 market strategies might prioritize short-term profits over the long-term health of the technology and community?
Well, that really depends on the on the marketing team. And on the go-to-market agency they're working with one. Because not a lot of people work with market agencies. A lot of people think that they know how to do it, and they don't. So they hire, mediocre social media, sort of digital managers that then do not understand how to properly even run a social media page for the company, so that it doesn't look tacky, but so that it looks good, especially when the product itself has loopholes, problems, and still needs work. And then when you start working, when a go-to-market team comes into a project like that and starts working with those marketing managers of the company and starts working with the executive team of the Web3 company, trying to be, a breakthrough in art auctions, for example. Let's just use that for the instance. Our job is not just to, create an image that quickly raises the money. No, we check the company. We look into the white paper. We sometimes help with the white paper. We look into the technical documentations, the tokenomics. We've done quite a few ourselves for companies, because at the end of the day, when you have a good product, that's when you can have a good go-to-market. And that's when you can have a good marketing strategy. Once the product has no loopholes, once the product is tangible, even if it's a DeFi product, or it's a product that uses Web3 to enable, art auctions in a unique way, it needs to work. It needs to make sense. There needs to be a clear revenue model that actually works for the clients and the company itself and any investors coming in. And when we help a company that's managed by mediocre digital managers, understand all that and start fixing some of these issues, a lot of, CMOs and sometimes even CEOs, they go into the retreat mode. They're like, I know it all. I know it better, right? And so we try not to work with people like that. If we experience that, we realize that, this is a company that might be a scam. They might not want to, dive deep and do the work, because they don't care, because they just want to raise the money quickly. They need a quick outside image, external image. They need to push that image into traffic, into the masses through influencers, etc. And they want to quickly, close a round or two. And then who knows what's going to happen next. So we don't work with companies that don't have a product that we actually validated and tested. I think that's really the main promise. Like recently, one of our clients, Hypercycle, amazing project by our good friend Tufi Saliba and the Totem Network, together with Singularity Net, they launched essentially the beginning of decentralized AI, which is Hypercycle. HYPC on CoinMarketCap, the technology allows for one AI to talk to another AI in a microsecond and pay it for its services, or pay each other for its services. While also the HYPC token allows users that hold it to take their computer and go into a pool, a decentralized AI mining pool, and provide a little bit of their computing power for a mining AI facility that Hypercycle specializes in, where they go to Bitcoin centers or Bitcoin mining centers and they re-outfit them into AI mining centers, because computing AI is quite a bit more profitable, believe it or not, and a bit more stable right now than Bitcoin mining. So here's an interesting company. The reason I brought it up, because it kind of houses the Web3 promise, right, of decentralizing AI, while at the same time, it allows people to make money with it, because it does have a token. It does have a token, and it has a utility token that allows you to participate in a mining pool operation for AI and doesn't need to be much. But for a third, for somebody in the Philippines taking their computer and putting it into a AI mining pool just by running a program in the background and making even a few dollars here and there, it might make a small difference. So in that story, Tufi, right, didn't have success right away. He's a cryptographer that started in '95, and he's a great friend of mine. But I know his story because we did so much stuff with him, even in Total Network, the films. We did a full SMM campaign for Hypercycle, as well as a big film for their operation in Paraguay. We flew to Paraguay. They spoke to the president. They essentially offered Paraguay to use their hydroelectric power plant, Itaipu, which is one of the biggest in the world, to use that energy that's not being sold to anyone, to use all that huge amount of megawatt energy for AI, to set up AI mining in Paraguay and help the country leap forward, So here is kind of the next sort of premise of Web3. It's Web3 and Web4. Web4 is AI and Web3, right? So Web3, Web4 coming together to actually help some of the instabilities that we spoke about earlier in our conversation from the Web3 kind of stabilize through Web4. I think Hypercycle is a great example where you can help your customers, your people. You can help your clients, your Bitcoin mining centers. You can help them, and you can help governments, right? Because there's a technology that allows you to kind of leapfrog the AI race. And a company like that is in a perfect position to come in and offer this sort of a jump. And governments of countries like Paraguay, countries that are, not super great financially, but at the same time, not third world countries, somewhere in between, they're able to benefit. That's the formula. You have to look for something where we align the incentives. Yeah, if anything, Bitcoin is Bitcoin and Bitcoin maximalism is Bitcoin maximalism, but Web3 is about, like I said, not building businesses, building communities and aligning incentives. If you can align the incentives of your customers, of your partners, your clients, right? And even governments, then all of a sudden you're doing something right. But that takes time to understand, realize, and discover.
All right. Gil, I have last question for you. So what excites you the most about the future of Web3?
What excites me the most is the final stand, the last battle, where we will go into something that my good friend and our dear brother and patron, Brock Pierce, talks a lot about, which is Gov3. What is Gov3? Well, Gov3 is actually decentralizing the governments and decentralizing governments. Not decentralizing governments, I should say, but it's decentralizing the power of governments and taking them back to the people, because there's a major problem right now in governance, in terms of countries, in terms of democracy. I mean, there is no democracy. I think we can agree on that. Democracy is bought and paid for and lobbied everywhere in the world. It's all complete BS. There are only a few countries in the world, and it's funny enough, that don't really agree to democracy, and they're all coming together, surprisingly, which is kind of like Saudi Arabia, China, Russia, UAE, etc., right? Because democracy, it's a nice marketing term to wield the sheeple, so to speak. But if we apply Gov3 to a form of governance, we can forget democracy and we can actually create consensus. And that's the next step for Web3. And that really excites me a lot because I come from a world of political journalism. I also come from a world of geopolitics, and I'm a dual citizen of Russia and America. And I was born in the motherland, and I grew up in New York, and I've been living between the two countries my whole life. And so seeing the mess that we're all in right now, it's really scary that unless we introduce Web3 governance and consensus models to actually create true votes and create real, tangible, immutable legislature, then we are faced with quite a predicament, which could lead us into not a hybrid World War III, which is where we are at right now, but it can lead us into an actual full-on scale World War III. And that would be the least favorable outcome for the planet. So I'm excited for the fight that we have ahead of us as an industry, and a fight in a way where we don't need to use force. We just need to use consensus. But the question is, when will our industry of Web3 actually come to consensus? Considering all the things we spoke about during our last, almost 15-minute conversation now, that's a big question, idea. So, but that is what excites me, because it's always good to be a part of the process. We just have to figure out a way to trust the process.
Thank you, Miguel, for your contribution, and I hope our audience also enjoyed our chat. I definitely enjoy it. I know that we up to 40 minutes already recording it, but I didn't want to interrupt. It was really interesting. So, and if our audience got further questions or just want to connect with our guests, you can find Miguel's contact info in the video description. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, and do check out, please, thefutureisnow.community. That's where you can watch our episodes. That's where you can learn exciting news and market trends about the industry. And just generally, it's a nice media portal that's available for folks out there who want to get into Web3 or are already in Web3. And remember, the future is what you make it. The future is now.